Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 446th episode of my series, where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So even though this technically isn't the first non-hip-hop album I've covered on the page, I would argue that today's pick is even more of a departure from what I normally do, compared to artists like Flying Lotus or Burial, who may pull from all sorts of genres and kind of fall more on the electronic music side, but there's a clear overlap with hip hop when it comes to their use of sampling techniques and break beats. In this video, we're covering one of my all-time favorite artists, Tom Waits, and while he isn't remotely underground or anything like that, I'd still be pretty surprised to find any followers of this page who are really into this guy's music, and I would attribute that mainly to the fact that you could be into alternative rock, more classical music, jazz, or virtually any genre, and it still won't really prepare you for the unique world of madness that Tom Waits creates within his work. Of course, he was writing absolutely gorgeous songs that were wise beyond his years right out of the gate from his earliest projects, but I'm going to be focusing more on the era of his career that came following his album Swordfish Trombones, since it was on that LP that we really began to hear Waits' full influences from the likes of Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band, specifically Trout Mask Replica, which was shown to him by his longtime wife and writing partner Kathleen Brennan, who was arguably the biggest influence on his music from this point going forward. Tom always had this deep, guttural singing voice that could be used for a number of contexts. But prior to the 80s, most of Tom's work used that one-of-a-kind delivery, mixed with his stark and poignant poetry, as sort of a juxtaposition to the beautiful piano ballads. But once he started getting inspired by more avant-garde music, we began to hear much more adventurous and primal percussion, and most importantly, we saw Tom Waits leaning more into what I feel he does best, which is creating these enveloping and captivating worlds that play out like a movie in your head. A good amount of that is due to the top-tier production and instrumentation that he employs on just about every record, but the thing that really resonates with me personally, besides the lyricism, is the wide array of uses Tom can find for his voice, allowing him to tackle sweet and personal love songs, and then right after go into a track all about hell where he sounds like the embodiment of Satan himself. There's a slew of projects that demonstrate these attributes, but my personal favorites would have to be the two albums he released back in 2002, both of which were created for the Robert Wilson opera Woyzeck, and these included Alice, another brilliant album I'll definitely talk about at some point, along with the LP that we're covering today, which has always been my personal go-to Tom Waits album, Blood Money. Not only does this classic manage to walk that tightrope I was alluding to earlier, balancing between sinister, devilish songs and pretty ballads, but the lyricism is consistently some of the best across any release in his discography as far as I'm concerned, with highly conceptual moments like God's Away on Business, which offers a creative and unique approach to the universal question of why so many prayers go unanswered. And instead of sharing one of my favorite verses like I normally do, I'm just going to pull a handful of my favorite stanzas that appear across the entire project. I want to start with some of the more hellish quotes, and we get plenty of those right off the bat since the first two tracks follow this theme pretty directly. And one part from the opener that has always stood out to me is when Tom says, "God builds a church, the devil builds a chapel, like the thistles that are growing round the trunk of a tree. All the good in the world you can put inside a thimble and still have room for you and me." And he continues with, "If there's one thing you can say about mankind, there's nothing kind about man. You can drive out nature with a pitchfork, but it always comes roaring back again." Weirdly enough, we get two of the sweetest and most endearing moments on the entire album right after the dark and foreboding opening tracks with Coney Island Baby and All the World is Green, and the latter is easily one of the songs I return to most from this masterpiece, because it's such a vast departure from the type of content I've discussed thus far. that you would probably never guess it even came from the same project. Yet not only is the instrumentation smooth and mesmerizing, but we get classic, quote-worthy lines about love. A couple of my favorites being, "I fell into the ocean when you became my wife. I risked it all against the sea to have a better life. Marie, you are the wild blue sky, men do foolish things. You turn kings into beggars, beggars into kings." Another is, "The face forgives the mirror, the worm forgives the plow. The question begs the answer, can you forgive me somehow? Maybe when our story's over, we'll go where it's always spring. The band is playing our song again, all the world is green." I could go on and on about literally every song here, but if there's one I really have to mention, it's "A Good Man Is Hard to Find," with the title obviously taking inspiration from the incredibly morbid short story by Flannery O'Connor of the same name. And the reason I find it so necessary to talk about this closing track is because it's maybe my favorite Tom Waits song of all time, and that's really saying a lot, because it perfectly blends the earlier themes of humanity and its evils with a more melancholic yet weirdly comforting feeling, despite the lyrics of the track being pretty bleak when you just read them without the music or personality, like I'm about to do. I'm gonna share the first verse along with the chorus because they're pretty brief. And Tom kicks it off singing, "I always play Russian roulette in my head, 17 black or 29 red. How far from the gutter, how far from the pew. I will always remember to forget about you. A good man is hard to find, only strangers sleep in my bed. And my favorite words are goodbye, and my favorite color is red." While obviously there's a number of talented studio musicians who were essential in making Blood Money what it is, the only people credited with the production and writing of this thing were Tom and Kathleen themselves, which really isn't too much of a shock if you know anything about the way Tom Waits works. When it comes to my three favorite songs overall on this thing, I really think I would have to go with All the World is Green, Another Man's Vine, and A Good Man Is Hard to Find. As for honorable mentions, I still want to recommend a handful of tracks like Misery is the River of the World, Everything Goes to Hell, God's Away on Business, Knife Chase, Lullaby, Starving in the Belly of a Whale, and The Part You Throw Away. Thank you for watching my 446th video. Next up, we have a killer release from earlier this decade, which came from a pretty interesting combination of underground legends who actually have a sequel to that LP coming out very soon. So keep an eye out for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what moments off of this challenging LP captivate you the most. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.